Deen Intensive began in the mid to late 90s when some people who had spent some time overseas studying wanted to expose more Western students to serious study of Islam. The reason that it was called Deen Intensive was the analogy of an intensive care unit was used. Shaykh Hamza Yusuf worked in a critical care unit, and he said the same way that you have people with physical needs that require intensive care, there's people with spiritual and educational needs that require periods of intensive care.
In some ways, it's difficult for a lot of modern people, especially young people that are coming out of an entertainment culture. Our universities have become places with a lot of frivolity and insipidness. So getting people into a serious mode, into a type of activity that's going to really get them thinking a little deeper about their lives and what they're going to do with their lives, that's essentially the goal.
The Rihla, I think many people know that it means a journey, but I think that the journey is sort of multidimensional because there's a physical journey that takes place. So for a student, they're actually physically going to, take a journey to a particular location. And for many times it's quite far. It's not just a simple 1 hour flight, And traditionally the Rihlas meant that they were really physically taxing journeys. People used to go for miles and miles on a camel or a donkey or however have you to seek sacred knowledge. So you have that physical hardship and that component that goes there. And then there's the intellectual journey because that's what the classes are going to offer you. And then you have the spiritual journey, which I think perhaps is the most overwhelming part of the program, because you're in an environment that kind of takes away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and you're just there to study. You're with students who are coming with similar intentions, and you're with teachers who've actually spent a greater part of their life committed to sacred knowledge. And so in that environment, those three components together are really what constitute a Rihla.
It's a very thorough program, and 3 weeks is a long time. It's set up in such a way that it's not exhausting. There's lots of time to talk and to walk, and yet there's time for serious study. And I think that makes the serious study much more effective.
It brings them to these sort of bucolic environments where you're cut off from the hustle and bustle of the urban scene. And so it's really conducive to acquiring knowledge. So I think the benefit of these 3 weeks extends far beyond 3 weeks. I think for a lot of people, it's 3 years of benefits.
In traditional Islamic psychology, the single most important thing to break the nafs is to get out of habitual patterns, because humans by their nature fall into habitual patterns and become like automatons where we're really on an automatic pilot. And many people can stay on an automatic pilot their whole lives. The idea behind this is where really you get people into pattern disruptions.
To be honest, I was really burnt out before I came. I was spent, the last 6 months I was really struggling to do anything, I'd done a lot of community work, and I just was, not that I didn't want to do it, but I just didn't have the energy.
we were like a graveyard of the Walking Dead, spiritually deficient. And I was seeking some type of revival. And mashallah, someone sent me the email about, coming here. And I thought, well, this might be the perfect place to do just that. I've been running on E, so I think I need to be able to fill up 3 weeks. Inshallah, it'll be enough time.
When you become a Muslim, of course, you have a lot of questions, and then you may get conflicting answers in your community. So I think it's important for me to be around the scholars and their families, and you can see their human side almost. It's not like they're just this person on a pedestal.
The Deen Intensive Foundation brings together this classical scholars who understand what they're actually teaching to their students, and not behind a screen. you're firsthand. You're able to teach them. They're able to see you, your facial expressions, your hand movements, your feelings, and something that probably hasn't made sense to them their whole life, that they've been trying to read online about for the last 2 years. You can explain it to them in a matter of 3 to 4 minutes. That's all it takes.
And that's what the environment is really offering students to do, that you can't get through an online class or through the internet or downloading a lecture. You're actually physically sitting down with a teacher, and then there is that, we feel that there is that transmission from heart to heart that really is what impacts you, because you're actually physically seeing a teacher. You're seeing the knowledge that you're learning being embodied in that person, right? And so then you're seeing a practical aspect that you're not going to be able to see in any other form.
واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين.
As I mentioned in the previous class, or maybe one of the nasiha said that العلم ليس في السطور فقط وإنما هو في الصدور. That knowledge is not just in the lines of books, but it's also in the hearts of men and women who carry that knowledge.
The traditional Islamic world is a world that allows for types of intimacy that the modern world is not really adept at facilitating or suitable even for that. My teachers, Murad, I actually slept in his tent. He had me sleep next to him.
We came here really to be with each other. And we're together for almost a whole month. So this is a time of bonding. And as the Sufis say, when the believers meet, that's the feast of the souls. So this is a feast that lasts a whole month. And it will have powerful transformation, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala.
The idea of studying anything for me beforehand, because I haven't been raised in any kind of traditional setting, or I never went to Arabic school or Islamic school or anything like that. Like, I really did not have the confidence to really seek knowledge in a sustained or like in a serious way. And this Rihla, alhamdulillah, has, you get taught from scratch, whether you know it or not. The classes are teaching you everything from square one. So when I go back, inshallah, I'll have, like a base that I can build off.
This environment is like being in your mother's womb, very comforting, you see. But unfortunately, at the end of the 3 weeks, they're going to give birth, and I got to go back and deal with the world again. Yes, and I got to start breathing on my own. So I have to be able to find a way to translate whatever it is that I'm feeling here to give to the sisters.
The most important thing, one, is to take home with them an appreciation of the Islamic tradition, that our tradition is not a simple tradition. It's very vast, it's very beautiful. It's also timeless and perennial, and it's something that we can always benefit from. And then also with certain tools that will enable them maybe to get closer to their Lord, to be more theocentric in their commitments, and also hopefully a commitment to going on and doing bigger and better things with their lives and their time.
Allah says on the tongue of His Prophet, the heavens and the earth do not contain me. Okay, but the heart of my servant contains me. It can contain me. And when you get other than Allah out of your heart, and you have, you are for Allah Azza wa Jalla, nothing else, with the love of the Prophet, in the footsteps of the Prophet, then Allah fills your heart.
If anything, it's like, and mind you got to take it with a grain of salt. It's like the prophetic example in Medina Munawwara. Sahaba came from all over to study Islam to become better people. And of course, these are not Sahaba, and nor is the Prophet here, but we have the prophetic knowledge, we have the prophetic tradition, we have the prophetic character that is emulated, through our teachers. And you have these students that have come from all around the world to take that from them. And you know, you had Suhaib al-Rumi and Salman al-Farsi, and here you have the al-Amriki and al-Baratani, and you know, that's the same thing.
That's something Dr. Abdallah keeps saying in his talks, you know. We can do amazing things. And yeah, I'm ready, you know.
I told them that I could not afford this, and they were very kind, and they offered me, you know, a scholarship to be able to come. I want to be able to say that it touched my heart that the people of this program cared enough to think that my need was important, you know. And I just what, as Obama said, I'm just Joe America, but they said, you know, we want to help the sister. I don't know why, they just did, and I really appreciate it, because I would have never thought that would have been the case. We hardly ever talk about love and community and responsibility to one another, but being here, I'm learning Islam as love, as a way of life, as what's inside of you, and to bring it out. And maybe I could take that back and give it to the sisters, and then they themselves can learn how to love themselves in an environment where they feel like nobody loves them at all.